Hello again. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it, and thanks for coming out. Behavior Matrix was founded in 2008, and the goal was to quantify emotion and to derive behavioral cues from text data. The company, we're based up in Bluebell, so pretty close to here, mostly Philly people. The company's privately held. We have about 35 employees right now. Out of the 35, 25 are either data scientists, mathematicians, technologists, developers, or insight analysts like myself. And the backgrounds and experience includes combinatorial mathematics, artificial intelligence, computational linguistics, spectral graph theory, and research and analytics. I myself, I've been with the company for 16 months. My career has been doing marketing analytics and primary marketing research. So I'm like a data geek, and my job is to find the story in the data. So now we have these new tools that I can use to derive insights that people maybe have thought have been there, but now we can identify, measure, and quantify them. We have a foundational patent in this space, and we have about 7 or 8 other patents pending. We have a platform where we can collect data. Our platform, you can picture like a giant vacuum cleaner, and we can go out on the web and pull text data in. And we have like mountains of servers, a big stack, and what we do is if you have a particular question or business issue or problem you're trying to solve, we would go out and try to find that data. The data comes in, it gets cleaned, processed, stored, and then we do the emotional scoring. The target industries, we do a lot of healthcare and pharma, financial services, retail, consumer brands. We've done political work for some of the candidates that in the last election cycle that just ended. And we also do some intelligence work for federal government agencies. So what we do is we can take any kind of text data. So typically it's Twitter, Facebook, forums, blogs, RSS feeds, news. We could take call center data. We could take transcripts of qualitative market research. The data comes in, and we use natural language processing so that the computer understands data similar to how the human brain would break it down. And then it gets scored on emotion. And the emotion is scored contextually, meaning you have a topic of interest, and we look for those topics in the data using certain keywords, and then it gets scored. It's very scientific and very empirical. The theoretical basis for this is based on the work of Dr. Robert Plutchik. Normally, the presentation we would give that explains our science and technology, which would be done by our systems guy, that's about 2 hours, so I have maybe another 10 minutes. So I'm just going to be able to scratch the surface. If you're really interested, you can Google search Robert Plutchik. He's a very well-known psychoevolutionary theorist. He came up with a theory of emotions, and he was able to sort of graphically portray emotions in relation to each other in different dimensions. We use 48 different emotions. We took his theory and we empirically validated it. Well, we empirically validated most of his theory, and we actually found some areas where he wasn't exactly right, and we're able to use the data that we collected to improve upon his theory. We think improve upon it. And so we have a scoring table. We score natively in English, in Chinese, and in Arabic. We can also score in Romance languages by translating them into English. The emotional content doesn't really lose much in translation, at least for the primary emotions. And then we can quantify and measure the different posts, and then we can classify them. So as an example, there's a lot of discussion now around a measles epidemic, a little mini epidemic that's going on around vaccination. So a recent article, someone said, it scares me. The mercury and other chemicals in the vaccines don't seem natural to put in the body. Okay, so if you look at that particular statement, you can see that it's pretty high on fear, it's pretty high on apprehension, it's low on trust, right? And we can score statements like that across the board, and then we can quantify them and put numerics on them. And we take the 48 different emotions and we break them down into emotional vectors that are related to each other in one form or another. So we have 2 behavioral vectors and we have 2 more what we call emotional vectors. The behavioral vectors would be something, we call them calm to panic, which is like a sympathetic nervous system response. And that's based on emotions, a continuum of emotions such as annoyance, apprehension, fear, anger, terror, and rage. And we can score on that dimension. So that's sort of like a reaction, like, oh, there's a tiger outside, like it's pure reactive. There's another vector which we call apathy to attention, which is sort of proactive alertness, how much you're paying attention to something. And that's based on emotions like distraction, interest, surprise, anticipation, amazement, and vigilance. And that's more directed. On the emotional side, we have what we call loathing to admiration. On the one extreme, you have loathing. On the other extreme, you have admiration. There's a blend of emotions along that continuum. And that's sort of like likability or loyalty if you have a product or service or political candidate. And then the other one is grief to ecstasy, which is more like satisfaction or happiness. So what we do is we would take an entire corpus of data around a particular subject, and we score everything. And then mathematically, we find the overall average, and we make that like 0, 0. And then we can plot across these dimensions. We typically do quadrants where we have behavioral on one side and emotional on the other. And we could plot brands, we could plot topics. So we do currently we're doing work in healthcare and pharmaceuticals, so we could plot pharmaceutical products in relation to each other, and we can track them over time. One of our clients is in a category where there's a lot of direct-to-consumer advertising going on, so we could see how people are responding to those ads in relation to the brands. We also have done patient work where we can look at various aspects of patient experience, like the disease itself, the symptoms, the medications, the healthcare system with their physician, cost, things like that, and we can plot those out. And we've actually done some segmentation work where we've looked at patients who are very positive, have a very positive outlook, and see what's driving their positivity, and contrast that to patients who are very negative about their outlook. And that gives guidance to healthcare providers on how to keep patients happy and compliant. You could probably envision the work that would be done in politics, where you could track how candidates are faring on various issues. So we've done some work there. We also do work, not just sort of an aggregate or at the brand level, but we can do things at the individual level. So we could do influence analytics. So we can see if you're looking at a Twitter conversation or within a forum, we can see how emotion is moving from one person to another. Each post has an emotional fingerprint, a unique emotional fingerprint that we can quantify across many dimensions. And we can see how that emotion, based upon conversation, how it transfers from one person to another. And then we can derive who is the most influential person in that conversation. And that has applications if you're in Twitter, for example, you're in a public space. If you want to directly engage people who are influential, either positive or negative about your brand, you can theoretically go out and touch them directly. Now, we only work with publicly available information or information that's given to us by a client. So we're not doing anything, we're not hacking into accounts. But I look at Twitter as sort of like the modern day equivalent of like writing a letter to the editor in the newspaper and signing your name. You want it to be out there in the public space. But we can use that and we can see how you feel about a brand, a topic, a political candidate, and we can also see how influential you are in a conversation. Some of you folks may be familiar with a Klout score. Our influence analytics is different from cloud. Cloud is sort of a function of how many followers you have and your volume. We do influence mathematically based on emotional transference, and it's based around a topic and a time period. So it's different than a cloud score. But you can see, like, the applications would be, if you're in business or if you're in public health, you want to change behavior. And this gives us another way to look at people or groups of people and how to engage with them. Now, if you're to go back to the vaccine example, what normally happens just in general is that if you have a position, your intellectual position is based on your emotion. And you may support it selectively with facts that you find important. You may gain reassurance by associating with other people who share your viewpoints. You see this in politics all the time. In the vaccine example, if you go to somebody who's really afraid and you just kind of throw out a bunch of data like you need to have 95% vaccination rates to get herd immunity, or you're endangering other people, that probably won't resonate, because what happens is once you form an opinion, if someone challenges you, you're going to stick to that opinion. And that's sort of like a human evolutionary thing. You know, humans probably haven't evolved that much over the last 10,000 years. So when you go back to the pre-industrial age, if there's a threat to the community, you're gonna go back to the you're gonna have like a panic kind of reaction and go back and circle the wagons and get in with your community, and you're gonna maybe go back to your religion or whatever your worldview is. So if you're going to engage somebody, you need to understand. I see I'm almost out of time here. You need to understand their viewpoint and basically develop messaging that acknowledges that viewpoint. So I'll end with that. Thanks.
It's like the Academy Awards with Lindsay, like, we're almost out of time. We're almost out of time. Like, I get you. I have a stopwatch. I'm going to be good, I promise. So, good evening, everybody. I'm going to make this really easy, okay? There's going to be some people that this particular talk applies to and some that it doesn't. So I'm going to tell you right up front, if it's you, listen carefully. If it's not, drink more beer. I'm speaking specifically from sort of a tech company perspective. So if you own a tech company, own a website, own a mobile app, if you want to, if you wish you did, if you used to, if you think you might someday, it's for you. Everybody else, enjoy the beer. So I was invited to talk tonight, and I was told to speak specifically on data-driven decision-making. I'm so glad I said that right. I've been practicing it so much. And I had two thoughts. My first thought was, oh, this is so awesome. I totally love data. I'm a total data nerd. And my second thought was, golly, this is quite possibly the most unsexy thing in the whole world to talk about. So my goal will be not to put anyone to sleep and hopefully bring a little bit of good information to you. So quick background on some of the stuff I've done that gives me just a little bit of credibility. I've been in the tech business, particularly the mobile business, since the beginning of time. And as you all know, if you're in the tech business, tech years are kind of like dog years. So when I say I've been in it forever, I mean like, 2009. And I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of user acquisition. I ran one of the largest user acquisition campaigns in the world for a company called MeetMe, which is based up in New Hope. I was acquiring about 800,000 new users a month. I've built products and websites and mobile products that have driven millions of dollars for their owners. And finally, I've created and patented data management systems, which oddly, I built a Twitter one that was like, our attorneys need to talk. I did it a really long time ago. I'm a little worried about that, but I think you're okay. So the title of my talk, here's what we're going to talk about. And this is going to just be horrifically disappointing to all of you great visionaries out there. And that is bad news. Your gut has failed you. And it's true. If it hasn't already, it will in the future. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I come from a line, generations of entrepreneurs. My father, my grandfather, his father and grandfather behind him, so lots of pressure on me to succeed. I was out to dinner one night with my father, who I love dearly, and who happens to run one of the top accounting firms in the nation. And he said, so what are you up to, Josh? And I said, well, Dad, it's actually really, incredibly interesting. I'm building this tech product that it scrapes social media data, and then it does all kinds of things with it to tell you basically what it's trying to say. And my dad sat back on his chair. He's got a bigger belly than I do, and he's like, you know, my gut feeling, Josh, is that somebody's probably already done this. And I was like, Dad, we just talked a minute ago. You said you want to get on the interwebs to look at a thingy called the Facebooks. He's like, I know, but it's a gut feeling. So I said, you know, Dad, what's informing your gut? Because here's the problem. People that are successful, and again, I'm not putting down my dad. Love him, Jilly. Real nice fella. You know, people that are successful believe that they've developed this gut that is omniscient. If anyone's a theology student here, omniscient, knows everything, right? But the reality is, you should be relying on your gut to the point that it's validated, right? That you have data supporting it. So like, for example, if I were to say to my dad, I'm not saying this happened last week, but if it did, Dad, so, you know, on the business account, I did renovate my kitchen. And do you think that would be like a red flag for the IRS? And he was like, my gut tells me yes. So I would say, good, he's got 40 years in accounting. I should probably listen to him. So again, the point is your gut may have gotten you here, good for you, but data is what's going to get you where you're going. One of the greatest entrepreneurs and business success stories in the history of time is Bill Gates, right? This dude had a gut. Actually, he kind of had a gut too, if you ever noticed that. He makes me feel better about mine. The dude had a gut. He could figure out anything. But when it came to him retiring and having his billions and billions of dollars, he started a foundation with his wife, Melinda, with a very modest goal to change the world completely. And I want to read you a quote. Here's what he said in the Wall Street Journal in 2013 when the question was, how are you going to do that? Bill Gates said, I propose to fix the world's problems through good measurement and a commitment to follow the data. Really? Bill Gates is going to follow the data wherever it goes. So I think we should listen to him. So what is data-driven decision-making? Well, first of all, it's not a process or a theory, at least not completely. It's a commitment to abandoning all of your preconceived notions. It's abandoning the I know it all attitude and submitting to the facts and data as you find them and letting that guide your business decision. So how do you do this? Again, talking to tech companies here. Everyone else can zone out, or people that want to be tech companies. So how do you do it? Well, I've sat in meetings. In fact, this wasn't too long ago in a large tech company, lots of smart people. This is the kind of tech company that only hires Harvard people. I did not go to Harvard. And they're having this intense debate amongst the senior executives. And the one senior executive said, I am so concerned I am seeing the 7-day and 30-day trends moving in such a way that it's forcing our DAU to crunch our MAU, and this is causing client and user attrition. And I raised my hand and I was like, you know, we just finished that user survey, and 10,000 people said that they would pay $10 for this one feature. Why don't we go do that? So the point is, don't major on the minors. Focus on the data that matters. So what data matters? This is one of the biggest questions I get from clients is, well, I know data is important, but there's so much of it. There's so much out there. So I would propose, when you're trying to figure out what data to look at, start at the bottom of the funnel and identify that first. So what's the bottom of the funnel for a tech company? Well, it should be one of two things. And if it's not, you're going to go out of business. So good luck to you. It's either lots of revenue, right? Monetization of users, or it's lots of users that you're going to monetize. So that's the bottom of your funnel. So the data that matters is everything that drives towards that. So that starts all the way at the top. How do I get my users, right? So it might be online, lead generation or, user acquisition. It might be viral campaigns, whatever it is. Start up there and say, why are people coming here? Look at the data. And then you look at how they're registering for your product and say, well, where are they bouncing from the registration process? What's making them not make it all the way through? How long is it taking them to get through? And then once they're in the product, say, what are they doing when they got here? What are the things they like? And more importantly, what are the things they're doing when they leave? But as you discover the things that they like, if they're spending all their time here, focus on that. Your users are telling you what they want, so listen to it. One of the biggest problems tech companies have today is they'll have an idea up here. And the idea is, I'm going to monetize my users right here. I'm going to make them do this. So all the users are in this big box here doing this. And they're pushing them up there going, go to my money, go make me money, go make me money, go to where I want you to go. Well, that's completely ridiculous. The data is not telling you that. What the data is telling you is they want to be right here. So put your monetization there. Be where the users are telling you they want you to be. So, very importantly, and this is the last thing, is statistically significant is significant. I don't know if any of my investors or angel friends are in the audience. If you are, turn around so I can see you, and then I'll stop talking. But every VC out there is going to tell you, particularly young tech guys, they're going to say, all right, now here's what you got to do. You got to go talk to your users. You got to get on the phone, call them. Well, that can work, but it doesn't. Because here's what happens. And I've gotten too many of these calls in my career. I get a call from a new tech company who I'm working with, and they say, Josh, we have decided to pivot. And I always go, oh, please tell me why. Well, this is great. My investor told me to go talk to my users. So I called up this user, and I said, what do you think? And she told me this. And then I called up 2 more users, asked them if they wanted to see the same thing, and they wanted it. So we're going to do it. And I'm like, oh. You know, I don't know about you, but I have met a ton of crazy people. And I'm like, how do you know that that first person wasn't crazy? And the only other thing more common than crazy in this world is followers. So if you found a crazy person to say something and asked 2 other people if they're going to do it, all you did was found the general public. Not a great reason to pivot. So the important thing is make sure your pool is big enough. Make sure you're asking enough people the right questions. Next is, I want to encourage any, as it pertains to statistics and users, I want to encourage all of you as tech people to never use the phrase, I built a product I would use, and I represent a large group of people. And I say, no, son, you don't. You represent one person. So if you build an app to do exactly what you want it to do, you build an app or a website for an audience of 1. So stop thinking that what you do is what other people do. Because as I look around this room, there's some tech entrepreneurs. I can guarantee you, you're not like other people. I see some business development people. You are not like other people. I see lots of different kinds of people. There's only one thing you all have in common. You're not like the person next to you. Only data is going to tell you where groups of people want you to go with your product. So don't assume you know. Listen to what your users tell you. Finally, under this section, before I close, is utilize technology. My goodness, I don't know if you realize this, but right now, today, every 48 hours, there is more data generated and stored than between 2013 and the beginning of time. Let me say that one more time. Every 2 days, there's more data generated today in our world than there was between 2013 and the beginning of time. Okay? We have built extraordinary technology tools to leverage and understand this data. Use technology. Don't get on the phone and call 3 crazies. Use technology. Here's another great thing about our society. You don't have to beg users for their opinion. Everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to share it with you. Just give them the avenue to do it. So I want to close with a simple encouragement, and that is to keep this in mind. Simply put, great innovators started this major technology boom. Creative thinkers were the ones that made the internet what it is today in terms of its robust reach. But the absolute truth is, and I promise you this, it's the data analysts and those that follow the data that are going to rule the tech world in the future. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Renee, and I do a 5-hour audio program on how to pick up girls, and I do a 2-hour seminar on the same thing. And what I want to do is, with my 10 minutes, give you something that you can use. And where his speech wasn't sexy, mine's supposed to be, because I'm teaching you how to get sexier. Basically, I am a Wharton grad, and I've been making educational vocabulary audio programs for a very long time. And a tech company came to me and said, "We love your comedy. Can you make a program on how to pick up girls, because that sells better than anything else on the web?" And I was like, wow, I've never picked up girls. So I did all of this research, and basically what I'm going to teach you is, from a Wharton perspective, how to turn yourself into a product that sells in the dating marketplace. And since I only have 10 minutes and not 5 hours, I'm going to give you the beginning, the how to design yourself part, because you can go home and use that. So basically, where I start my programs is with one concept, and it comes from my dad's Shiva, which is very odd, but it really did spark something in me. At my dad's Shiva, a bunch of 80-year-old men came up to me, and they said, "Renee, your dad got more women than all of us combined. He used to say, if you don't go, you don't get." And he got more women than all of us. That principle is golden, and really the key to getting dates for both men and women. And while I was doing my audio program, someone in the studio told me about Wayne Gretzky's quote, which is, "You miss all the shots you don't take." And the concept there is, if you don't go up to meet somebody, you're never going to get a date with them. But once I teach that, and I say, just keep going up to people, introduce yourself, and say hi, and you'll get dates, you get the obvious response. But what if I get rejected? So here's where my Wharton degree comes in, and my concept of marketing yourself for love and turning yourself into a product. There is science out there and facts on what makes somebody more likely to attract people. There's really the laws of attraction. And if you were a marketing person and you were about to get a product into the marketplace, the first thing you would do is market research. You design your product to meet the needs of the marketplace. So when you're thinking about how am I going to be able to go up to people and not get rejected often, what you're doing is, well, what are people attracted to? And the obvious, obviously we can't do much with. I mean, there's a whole bunch of data on people are attracted to symmetrical faces. Well, okay. What are you going to do with that? Not much. The whole clear skin, everybody knows that. But there is so much information on how to design yourself in a way that is going to make you really attractive. And that's where we're going to start. I did my own survey of about 100 and some people on what turns you on, what turns you off, what would stop you from asking somebody out. And there's a lot of evolutionary biology on this topic. So I'll give you some really interesting things to know. When you're trying to put yourself together in a way that attracts people, there's some really good information. One is, when you're talking about body shape, women have this concept that men like skinny women. But where your head should be when you're trying to figure out what is going to make people the most attracted to me is think, what would attract people millions of years ago? You go into the evolutionary biology. And if you're a woman, what you want to do is look as fertile as possible, which is kind of depressing for me since I'm in my 50s. And Cupid was my son. So I'm past that whole fertility thing. I think. I'm not actually sure on that. But that's besides the point. But the whole idea is that men are not, when you get too skinny, you lose your period. Men are not attracted to skinny women. And that's a really big burden off of a lot of women. They actually did studies of 300 cultures, and 81% of them liked plump women more than average women. In America, it's average. But what that means is you don't want to diet, you want to make sure you have the right shape. And what I always tell women is, running's not going to get you men. Ab workouts will get you men. You want to have flat abs, you want to do butt lifts, and that's where you want to be when you're working out. Women who are runners don't have that shape. And so when I work out, it's all abs. All right, for men, what evolutionary biology for men is, who is going to protect me from that woolly mammoth over there? It's kind of like you have to look strong. So it's all about big shoulders, big arms, and big chests. And that's what you want to do when you're working out. Once again, the running is not going to get you women the way that doing workouts that look like you could beat off an animal or caveman or whatever. Okay, so that's one thing that's interesting. The other thing that's really interesting is obviously with the men, you're talking about women like guys who are wealthy and who are going to take care of them. And that's not really very useful information because it's not like you're not trying to get wealthy. Or if you're not wealthy, what are you supposed to do? And here's what's interesting about that, and women will back me up. What women are attracted to is men with potential. So all you have to do is when you go on dates and you're trying to attract women or you're on the internet and you're trying to get dates, is you want to look like you're somebody who has plans. I always date musicians. They never make money. I have this thing for long-haired guys. But they're all in bands, and you're like, maybe someday they'll be a rock star, and that's good enough to keep me attracted. And that's the way women are. As long as you are like, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm going to have this big company, you'll get women. I once went on a date, and this is actually kind of interesting. It was with a guy who had founded camps for like hundreds of kids. He was crazy successful, and he was on TV a lot. It was like, one of those kind of wow careers. And we go on the date, and he's like, oh, the last year, I'm scared I'm going to go bankrupt. And then I'm on the date going, he's kind of bald. It's like, it was like, like he kind of, oh, I'm sorry. That's not a good song. It's just kind of like, as I was sitting there, but it was like, all of a sudden, like he lost that whole cool, wow, he's founded camps. It was all of a sudden like, wow, he's about to go bankrupt. So you want to make it seem like you're somebody who's going to be really successful. The other thing that's interesting to know and that you can use is that when they've done a ton of studies of people, if you are intelligent, funny, and kind, you start looking more attractive. So it's really important. Your personality is really important. And while I'm talking about all this, if you want to, you have to look good and you care about looks and be more sexy, it doesn't make you happier. It just makes you able to get people better. I found that out last night because I was starting to get bummed out about the old thing. I was like, oh, okay, good. You don't get less happy if you get older and you go gray, which is another thing that's really important for women. An important tip is never, ever cut your hair, ever, ever. And never let it go gray if you want to get guys. Crazy important. How many guys in this audience like women with short hair better than women with long hair? Do we even have one hand up? One. All right. Okay, on that note, another thing that's really important for men, just like I told women, you don't have to be that skinny, you just have to work out your abs, and you don't want to be skinny. For men, you don't have to be that muscular. Men are more attracted to people who are more muscular. They think that they're better looking. Women don't have that same thing. Women don't care that much about how muscular you are. Okay, and then I think that's mine. I'm really sorry, guys. Totally forgot to turn it off. All right, here's something else that's very interesting. Obviously, you don't want to be broken out, but there's not much you can do about it. It's not like you're going to try to have broken out skin. But one thing that's really, really interesting is when they've done studies, people who eat a lot of fruits and vegetables have better color skin. So it's all about health and fertility and all of that, but I found that so fascinating, that if you eat more of the red and orange fruits and vegetables, you will get more women and you'll get more men. It's like universally attractive for everybody. So I thought that was kind of cool. Another interesting thing when you're designing yourself based on the research is that both men and women are more attracted to people when they're wearing red. So when you're going to go out to pick up people, wear red. It's good to know. All right, and now I'm going to do the most important thing. Your success in picking up people and meeting people is going to depend very much on who you go after. And I'm going to do a really interesting experiment with you, and this will blow your mind. Think about who you're attracted to. Who are your crushes, both celebrities and in your life? Who are you attracted to? Think about that for a second. Okay, then I want to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to keep them all in your mind. Okay, this is going to be the most important dating tip I can ever give you. When you're thinking about the ideal partner, what level of education do you want them to have? How religious do you want them to be? How tall do you want them to be? What's your ideal height? What's your ideal job? What types of careers are you attracted to? What kind of hobbies are you into and would you want them to be into? What are those, what do you like there? Do you like women or men that are athletic? All right, now that I've given you that and you're thinking about all of those things, I'm going to give you the most coolest thing to know. People are most attracted to people who are like them. The more someone looks like you, the more attracted to you they are going to be. People are most attracted to people of their own ethnic and race than they are to people of other races. People who are short are more attracted to short people. My mind always gets blown when I've got heavy friends and they tell me who they're attracted to, and it's always heavy guys. And I'm like, wow, that's not bad. But people who are heavy are attracted to heavier people. People who are tall are attracted to tall people. People who went to Ivy League schools are attracted to people that went to Ivy League schools, but people that didn't are more attracted to people that didn't. People who are older are more attracted to older people. So why is this important? Because if you want to start going out and really building your social life and getting lots of dates and feeling really good and getting your confidence up, you are going to not be shot down as often if you go up to people that look like you, who are the same education level as you. People are very much attracted to people who have the same religious, not beliefs, but amount of religion and that they care about. So when you thought about who your crushes are, were they similar to you in looks, in age, in all of those things? Just raise your hand if there was some sort of correlation. No? It should be. It should be that the people you're most attracted to are the ones that look the most like you. Okay, I am going to end on that. If I was going to do this for another 2 hours, we'd get into what to say when you go up to people, what works, the whole, being hard to get, really important, how. There's certain dates you can go on where people will be more attracted to you by the end of the night. Just a good tip, but I won't give it all away. If you want me to do my 2-hour seminar, call me. I love doing it. But never go to a romantic comedy or just out to dinner if you want to have the person want to fool around with you at the end of the night. And I will end on that. And as I said, I usually do 5 hours of this, so I tried to make it as short as I could and give you just information you can use when you go home. Okay.
Well, that was hard to follow. So my name is Tara Armstrong again. I'm a runner. So, and I come from a long background of marketing and advertising. So I worked in the agency space for a very long time. And in terms of, can everyone hear me okay? So in terms of sort of where I land on the spectrum, I'm very much more familiar with the way analytics makes us smarter marketers and advertisers. So from that perspective, one thing I'd encourage everybody to do who may or may not have some fluency with website design or interacting with websites or mobile apps is explore Google Analytics, just so you can understand sort of how the fundamentals of data does work. It's obviously aggregated data. It's not necessarily individual data and databases and things like that, but just from something that you could put on your resume and have experience, always recommend just having a little fluency in the fundamentals of sort of analytics, so to speak. So I started a long time ago, 15 years back, building websites in Front Page. So that was a dating myself there. And then I moved really quickly into what were some areas that were much more focused in the area of analytics. So SEO, understanding sort of the algorithms and how organic traffic can drive acquisition for websites, paid search, media buying and planning, and then social media buying and planning. So some of my favorite things to do are to take a look at the Facebook, ad platform and understand every day how they're incorporating new sort of audience targeting, behavior targeting, things like that. So from that perspective, the current company I work for, Real Time Media, we build promotions. We've been in this space for 20 years. We basically took the old days of going to McDonald's and putting a little card into the box with your name and information to try to win a Royal Caribbean cruise. We brought that online. Back in the day, it was mostly Flash-based. Now we're, of course, obviously very mobile-first focused in terms of responsive design and things like that. We also create sweepstakes, instant wins, those types of activation programs and user-generated contests. So we work very quick, integrated with the APIs from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So a lot of times when you see those calls to action for hashtag XYZ to be entered into this contest, we can run the back end for those types of things. So we're down in Conshohocken, and right now we work with a lot of large retail and healthcare and publishing clients. So from a standpoint of Toys R Us, or we even work with the real estate company Berkshire Hathaway, Diageo. So we work with Smirnoff under the CAP type programs. So all of those types of activation opportunities we look at as a value exchange. And that means in almost all cases, there's some very shiny carrot target object at the end of the form that you're about to fill out, whether it's win a cruise, win $1,000, be entered for your chance to win X. That is our offering in exchange for your data. And so when we look at it from that perspective, it makes data acquisition a lot easier. So you'll see that really clients come to us and say our first and foremost goal is to build our database both vertically, and what we've leveraged in a little bit more detail in terms of our tracking programs is to build that database horizontally as well. So we're trying to build profiles that are more robust than you would get by a simple promotion where you just collect an email address and name. We really like to layer on additional opportunities to collect information by additional profiling questions, polls, sharing activity, if you share on Facebook, Twitter, those types of things. So at the end of the day, if you see some sort of a program where it's a call to action to win a prize, we'd like to be the engine that's running that, because for our clients, we can not only just collect the sort of the profile information, likely all personally identifiable, and pair that with our back-end platform, which is called Rev. And our proprietary platform essentially is similar to Google Analytics in the sense that it can marry all of the inbound traffic drivers with the actual person who comes through the program. And then if the client is able to add tracking on their website, we can follow that person through to the website to understand what types of behaviors they actually perform on the client's website. So that's our way of building a much more robust profile of the data and of the people that come through and just are raising their hand saying, I just want to win a cruise. And that information is critically important. So I'm going to give you an example of a case study. So really quickly, it's on the topic, I guess, similar to Love. It's a Bride's Live Wedding is a program that we run with Condé Nast. And so essentially, couples can sign up to win $1 million wedding. It's a celebrity style. The only challenge is that the world picks the wedding for you in terms of the decor, the dress, the tuxedo. That is all user generated throughout the course of the program. So it's $1 million wedding, but you lose a little bit of say in what you're actually going to be wearing and where it's going to be. But really, it's a great call to action. So for any of you, just quick raise of a hand, anyone engaged? Because the next program starts on Saturday, Valentine's Day, so you can win $1 million wedding. And I actually have a little bit of I have a T-shirt here. Just quick question to anybody who may or may not be engaged, but is considering it. I think that probably puts Cupid out but in terms of how much is an average wedding these days? Anybody know? Who said 30,000? Yeah. Here is a T-shirt for you. I'll give it to you after. Yes, it's $29,800 is the average cost of a wedding these days. So that $1 million sounds pretty nice. And so when you think about it, we have a lot of brides, and they're heavily the larger part of our database that we have. So for last year's program, for instance, Condé Nast actually acquired over 3,000 couples, and with that data is a heavy profiling opportunity. So you really have to expose for Condé Nast, as well as just sort of their sponsors. The opportunity includes things like your first name, last name, your occupation, where you want to get married, how did you meet, how did the proposal happen, what's your ideal wedding dress, type of dress, send us pictures, video. So you're revealing all of this information about yourself, and it's extremely valuable to Condé Nast, and especially because they're trying to change the way they actually sell their advertising as a publisher. You know, people say, print is dead, everything's moving digital. Well, for them, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to sell their advertisers when they have much more, and they're more smarter about buying audiences and not just buying placements. So instead of them trying to sell David's Bridal an ad in the gallery for a wedding dress, they're able to actually connect the dots and say, you can buy a whole group of ladies who are interested. They're getting married in the next 9 months. That's the perfect time to buy a wedding dress. And they are also in your price point. They're not looking for a high-end Vera Wang wedding dress. They're actually looking for a lower end. They have budget concerns. So that just makes Condé Nast a much more smarter marketer and able to educate their sales team on how to increase their revenue from their publication. So that being said, the wedding that we offer, the $1 million wedding, is actually 5 phases. So it starts out with the first phase, all the couples submit. They are then whittled down to a group of 3 finalists. At that point, we open it up to category voting. So that's where the whole world comes in and votes. And they get to vote. And at that time, we actually can collect registration information from all the voters. And so then again, we're adding some additional sort of capacity, so to speak, to the promotion so that Condé Nast and Brides has more ammo for their advertisers. So then we start to understand a little bit more about the people that are voting. Are they sharing the promotion? And this program, over the course of time, can generate. Last year we saw over 150 million impressions on Facebook. And then we also, through our Rev platform, can understand how are those brides sharing. Are they favoriting and preferring to use Facebook? Are they preferring to use Twitter? And really starting to understand some of the behavioral aspects so we can just, again, become smarter marketers in reaching them. And so additionally, the opt-ins throughout the process, we collect data on behalf of the sponsors. So David's Bridal, Target, Mary Kay, they all also are privileged to have access to some of this data through the program. So you can understand how important that is for these advertisers. It just for the advertisers using Brides as a platform. And so it's really from a segmentation strategy. We're dealing with a lot of CRM folks. They like to aggregate that first party data with their data management platforms. So in many instances, we have partners with Acxiom or BlueKai, and those data management platforms really allow them to aggregate information and be smarter across the board in terms of how they market, not only with brides, but across their one-on-one communication from a CRM standpoint, as well as on their own websites, and then additionally across other audience targeting methods. So that could be from programmatic to any sort of DSP that they're working with. So the goal there is obviously we try to, at the very start of things, incentivize folks to come in, give us more information so that we can help our clients become smarter marketers. And that's all based on the data. So from a standpoint of where real-time media focus is, definitely interested in helping our clients and advertisers get to know their customers better. So that's pretty much it.
So at this time, we're going to open it up for a few questions from the audience. If anybody has anything burning, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get our speakers up here to answer your questions. Okay, so he asked if there are any programs that you guys like to use other than Google Analytics, like something that is higher level.
I'll answer. The first part of that is the cost aspect of it. So I think certainly Google Analytics is like a starting ground just because it's free. Of course, they also have their more advanced version, which does come with a cost. But I would say Omniture, Site Catalyst. So Adobe is doing amazing things with their overall marketing platform. I think, in my mind, that's set like sort of leaps and bounds ahead of some of the other ones, just because it's now integrating with a lot of Test and Target and other Adobe programs that you can use in order to actually take that data and leverage it across your media buy.
I'll just add one quick thing to that. If you have exhausted all of the abilities of Google Analytics, I promise you, you can charge any amount of money you want to virtually anyone. Google Analytics is a really deep platform. I will hire you as a consultant if you've done everything Google Analytics can do. You may not like the interface. You might prefer something like, say, Mixpanel or something else, but Google Analytics is extremely, extremely deep. I'm like really, really good. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, we didn't have 800,000 people going to Meet Me every day. I was getting 800,000 people to register for Meet Me every day, which is even better. We had millions and millions of people that I was driving to the site. How do you do it? There's 100 different ways, and some of them work, some of them don't, and it takes a heck of a lot of money.